In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at 3 specific cards that I'm going to be breaking down and why it might be an amazing opportunity to grade them. But before we jump into it, as always, we do weekly giveaways. All you have to do to enter is leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Side of that, if you want to support the community any other way, links down in the description below. 2 in particular, recommend you check out our Patreon. We had one spot that was open for a couple days, just sold out once again, but always make sure to check by if there is a spot that's ever available. And then outside of that, when it comes to our Discord, highly recommend you check that out. That's where we post all of the up-to-date information on what's going on with PokemartUSA, as well as where the majority of our community is. But now, before we jump into today's topic, today is Monday. We have to announce the weekly winners for today. So without further ado, drum roll for the 3 individuals. It is Thomas Aquinas, Pokey Dawn, and Clifton T. As always, make sure to message me via Discord. If I have missed you on a weekly specials or on a weekly winners, please make sure to bug me again. I get flooded with messages all the time, but message me there directly, and then make sure that you send me your information so that I can verify that you are indeed one of the winners. But shout out to these 3. So jumping into the topic now, I'm excited for today. This is a tease for a series we're going to be eventually producing. This is not officially and not producing like a fancy way, but we're gonna make it a just continuous Monday theme, and it's going to be called Market Mondays. It is not official yet. This is just a tease for it. This is something that once we get all of the technology and all of the systems set up, then I will make it an official thing. But more or less, what it's going to be is every single week, I'm going to pick 3 cards, or maybe 5, depending upon how the situation is. I'm going to send them in for grading, and then progressively over time, I'm going to do this on a week-to-week basis until I find it time to make a submission to PSA. And so the whole purpose of this is going to be looking at cards and seeing more or less the opportunities that these cards potentially can present themselves when it comes to if it's worthwhile investing in them, right? So we have been working on for the longest time now and progressively, ever updating, because it is a slow process, the Discord investment bot. And if you don't know about this, this is a piece of technology that we're working on that is going to predict more or less the general profitability of if you send a card into PSA. And most recently, V-Star Universe is one of the sets, or the English version, Crown Zenith, is a set that we've been getting a little bit more intricate with. And so we've got a couple of cards that I've pulled, and they're going to be 3 different price points, which is why I want to break it down with you guys. And we're going to break these 3 price points down on the potential returns that are possible. And we're going to go through, purchase these cards live here on stream, and then I'm going to send them in for grading. And then I'm going to show you not only the results of, what are the odds that I'm going to get a 10? What are the odds that I'm going to get a, 9? How much has the market price since changed when I first bought the cards, etc., etc. And I'm going to try to do this as well in quantities of, generally speaking, for the total cumulative spend, 20, because right now, when it comes to sending in with PSA, you have to have at least a minimum of 20 in order to qualify for bulk. I know that might seem a little expensive for some people, but you don't have to do this method in a general, long-term period of time. But since this is the first time we're going to be doing this method for this just general first video, I'm going to buy 20. Maybe I'll make 10 variations of the 3 cards, however much it's going to be in the future. But yeah, that's just how we're going to start off by setting it up. So breaking down the 3 cards we're going to be looking at today. Like I said, these are going to be all in 3 different price points. So please bear with me, but I wanted to make sure that it was done this way appropriately because, hey, we know that the grading fee of $15 is going to drastically affect whether or not there's going to be true value when it comes to sending some of these cards in for grading, because if you're saying that a card is worth $1, but it's $15 to grade it, then obviously the cost to grade it is 15 times more than it is to buy the card. But as an example for this Altaria card, for example, which right now you can buy it for $113 on TCG Player. That's a little outdated because I just, as we'll see, you're going to pay more closer to $1.08 80, but who freaking cares? Because what is the most recent sale on eBay? For $70, $71. And the average listed price on eBay for what is currently active is around the $75 to $80 price point. So kind of crazy to see a card like this, which is only selling for so little, is going for so much. And I noticed this was an actual trend and like pattern with a lot of the character rare cards that are in Crown Zenith. And so if you want to take a look at some of the other ones, like the Soul Rock was another perfect example, I highly recommend go checking it out and doing the math, because even if you say to yourself, well, yeah, it's still 15x to send it in for grading, well, you still have to ask yourself the question, which ultimately is, okay, well, you're still paying only $1 for a card. Go buy 30 of these and your initial investment is more or less going to be the grading fee. So, and after still taking that into account, you're talking a 4 or 5x return when you take the grading fee into the equation. Obviously, I like to look at the 9 as another value point, but the 9 value itself is basically at a loss if you don't hit. Shocker. So, but the ratio for this is incredible, right? Because if you say, all right, well, if I send in these Altarias, for every one Altaria that gets a 10, at least 3 of them can hit a 9 for me to break even or be profitable. I like that. That's a good equation, especially when cards nowadays are getting such an easier opportunity for 10s. And so looking at a card like this, sure, it's cheap, and usually I don't like cards that are that cheap because of the grading fee, but when you have a margin like this that is so fantastic, it's hard not to turn away. And so we're going to be picking up a couple of these and sending them in for grading. Once again, this is an experiment that's going to be over time, so who knows, in 3 months from now or 4 months or however long it takes for PSA to return the cards, the price of this could go from 70 to 40 to 50 to 30, but this is part of the experiment, right, that we're all going to be playing. Next card, this is going to be the higher end card that we're going to be taking a look at. It is going to be the Mewtwo V-Star, which this card actually is going for around 60. It says 70 on TCG Player, but average market price for this item is currently on 70. And we can look and see the card valuation too on the 10. And we see the pattern that this card, when it first came out, when its overall value was selling for $830, and we've seen it start to find its bottom near around that 179-ish price point. Well, here is the deal of the situation. If we know right now that this high-end card is actively still selling for roughly around a 150% return on eBay. I mean, guys, let's go take a look at the eBay sales just so that we're not, smoking. Like this is sales that are most recently being shown within the third. But I mean, guys, May 14th, 200. Obviously you're talking 167, 185, 167. Like it is actively selling around that 179-ish range. And this is something that has seen an absolute drop off in value, and yet the margin to grade this is still absolutely incredible. So in my mind, and this might sound kind of crazy to say, although I love the Altaria pickup because the initial investment is technically better, a part of me almost likes the Mewtwo more because I feel like the margin that this could potentially have for error on if 3 or 4 months from now we see prices go down is much greater, right? Because we say to ourselves, all right, well, let's look at the recent sales for this card, 90, 75, 70. Not a lot of volume. Not a lot of people are sending this card in for grading. And maybe that is to its benefit. But for me, I get more fearful because I say to myself, well, what if 500 of this card is sent in for grading all of a sudden, or 1,000, and it's 10s, and this thing just tanks. This becomes a $30 card or a $40 card. That's a lot scarier to me than a card like this, which has much higher volume, and we're seeing the price of it just continue to dump, and just now within the past month or two has found its bottom, more or less, is what it appears. And if that is indeed true, and we're at a point where this card looks to have found its bottom, and we're saying, whoa, I can go buy this for 60 and resell it for, after fees, or sorry, before fees, triple the price if I get it graded right. Like that's insane. You're more or less looking at it from a doubling up your money more than likely of a 3x, because you know, fees and grading, but still. It's a phenomenal price point that I wanted to draw a lot of people's attention to for the higher end card. Now let's talk about a middle of the road card, right? So we're showing a card that's worth $60 to grade. We're showing a card that's worth $1 and around 80 cents to grade. Now we're going to show the middle of the road card, which is going to be the Suicune V. So once again, this is a card that has really good value. And as said before, you guys want to know how I found the numbers for grading these cards and how I knew that these were the ones I was going to pick out? I used the Discord investment bot that we're recently building upon. And so I can see that, hey guys, there's some opportunities with a lot of these cards where if I go send it in, I can double, triple my money. And so the Suicune is one of those cards. All right, well, Suicune first came out, 256. The volume on this, much higher. Once again, much higher in the volume for this card. Obviously, the price to grade is almost the exact same as it is for the card itself. However, one thing that is actually really nice about this card that I would say is that if you are going to grade this card and you're going to hit 9s or you're going to try and hit 10s, the margin, we'll compare this better to the Mewtwo, right? So this is a $60 card to buy. Obviously, this is represented as 70. And this is saying it's a $20 card to buy. From a percentage value, you're actually getting a better ratio when it comes to if you hit your 9s, because of how much of a better premium you're getting on 9 prices right now. Which from a dollar basis, obviously it's still better with Mewtwo, but I don't expect this to really change, and I can anticipate something like this going up more in value and the spread for the 9 going down, if that makes sense. Hopefully that isn't really confusing. More or less, I guess the point that I'm making is I feel like long term there's going to be more room for error with the Suicune than the Mewtwo when talking about the 9 valuations compared to the 10s, which even then, the 10 valuation, speaking of which, is still better, because you're sending this card in. It is $20. Obviously, it's $15 to grade, and it's going to play a bigger factor because of that. But even then, you're saying to yourself, you're looking at least a 2x return of value for this card. We've seen the volume for it, but you know, the grading fee is still going to eat more into it because it's a card that's valued less. So more or less, taking the 3 components of it all, we have the Altaria, which if you take the just general exponential value of the individual card itself, you're talking about, I mean, when you take the grading fee into perspective, you're talking about a 3-4x return, you're talking about a 2-3x return, and then you're talking about a 2-3x return for all 3 of these. If you were to get 10s, if they were to come out and, you know, prices hadn't really dropped, but this is where just the fun begins, and we're going to try this experiment out together. So going on over, and I'm not going to check out with you guys because it's going to show my credit card information, but I'm going to show it in my checkout, and then I will cut to the screen once I have checked out, showing that I did indeed purchase it. But for now, here is what I am going to be picking up. I said I was going to be picking up 20 cards. It is going to be a variety of the cards combined. So I'm going to be picking up 4 Mewtwo's because, I mean, they're the most expensive cards. So I'm not going to try and pick up too many of them. But if you want to, there's no real equation to the capital for this. Then the Suicune being the next most expensive card. I'm going to be picking up roughly 6 or 7 of these if I'm correct. And the remaining card we're going to be picking up is the Altaria. We're going to be picking up 8 or 9 of these. For those people that are asking the question, which one I prefer the most, if I'm being 100% honest, just based on the charts that I'm seeing for the 3 of these, I would have to say, just based on the fact that I feel like there's so much more room for error with the 10s on the Mewtwo compared to the other 2, I think the Mewtwo is the one I see as the best investment, but only time will tell with this, because I could 100% be wrong. and you know, and we'll just kind of see which one's going to be the best at the end of the day when I get my grades back and we see what the market is. All right, now as you guys can see, I have officially checked out and made the order placed. You guys will see me break down and send the cards in for grading at some point in the future when I do a breakdown PSA send video. But more or less, ideally, in my mind, I am going to try and send these 20 in all at once. Eventually in the future, it's going to be more of a like consistent 5 to 10 cards I buy on a weekly basis, and then I'll do like a monthly submission. But for this one, just because this is a preview, I wanted to try and buy just the minimum so that I could send in the bulk requirement for the cards. And we're going to go through step-by-step process throughout the whole interaction and just see how successful this strategy truly is, especially when considering the percentage value. And we're going to reevaluate too. Is there going to be better opportunity with the cards that are like the Altaria, super low end, cheap, but it's, you know, expensive when you consider the ratio of how much it costs to grade versus the card value, but the margin is the best technically of the three? Or is it going to be the middle of the road with the Suicune, which could honestly go either way, or the Mewtwo, which sure, it's the most expensive of the three cards, but the margin for the 10 is incredible. And when you take that equation and add the shipping cost and the grading cost into it, it's not as bad as the other two nearly. So we'll just have to kind of see when we get to that point. But hopefully you guys found this video informative. This was definitely a video I was super excited to break down, and you guys saw how I did it. I gave you the numbers, I gave you the analytics and the reasoning behind picking these cards. So if you want to follow along for funsies, you can. You can buy one of each card, you can buy none of each card. Who freaking cares, right? This is just an experiment that you can join with me, whether it be, you know, buying these cards yourself or just staying along and watching the updates as they progress. But as far as it goes, that is all for today's video. Thank you guys all so much for watching. As always, make sure you want to enter into our weekly giveaways. Leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We post pre-recorded content for you to do so each and every week. But outside of that, if you want to be a part of the community, check the links. Patreon, we're sold out, but you never know. A spot might open for our wholesale access tier to get access to Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, and other things at wholesale prices. And then outside of that, join the Discord to stay up to date on all things PokemartUSA. But thank you all so much for watching. Until then, I will see you all on Tuesdays Live. Peace.